Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another TouchDesigner tutorial. This is Owsley Williford. We're going to be doing some stuff like what you saw on the beginning of the video. It's a pretty simple patch. Basically, we're just taking advantage of the fact that we can do some things with our camera in the digital space that would be very difficult to do with a real camera. For instance, what we're going to do in this is we're going to push the curvature of our camera lens beyond 180 degrees. So in practical effects, fisheye lens will show you 180 degrees, which means you can see straight up, straight down, and straight out to the sides all around, but really only in one direction. The lens can't see behind you. What we can do in the digital space is we can actually force our lens to curve even more than that, so it can go beyond 180 degrees. And it does wind up flipping the image upside down, but it also produces some really interesting kind of stretching artifacts that look really cool with certain types of scenes. So anyway, let's get started. I'm gonna just go ahead and get rid of all the default stuff, and we're gonna start with something. We're gonna start with let's start with a sphere. By the way, it is my sincere hope that this will be the last tutorial that has the little bad audio disclaimer on the front. The little AC unit's still right next to my computer, so still trucking away making noise, but I'm going to get an interface and a microphone, so it should be a lot less terrible in the not too distant future. Anyway, okay, so we're starting with sphere. Which is really about all we need here. Let's, just for sake of ease later, let's add a transform in, and then let's bang it out to null, and then let's go ahead and set up a render network. So we're going to attach that to a geo. We need a camera, and we need a light. Render top, and send all this out to a null, and then let's throw an RGB key in here so we have black background. I'm going to turn my viewer on, and there we go, we get a sphere. Okay, so I'm going to change my resolution here. If you have a non-commercial version and you want to do this same ratio, just do 720 by 1280. That's still allowed. I'm going to do 1080 by 1920. Same aspect ratio. This 9 by 16. It's Instagram Reels and TikTok format, which is where I distribute most of my content. So that's what I'm going to create for. All right, cool. So let's just get kind of the base of what we're doing here. So we're going to need a line map. Drag that onto my geo, and there we go. Now we have a 1990s computer graphic. Wonderful. Okay, so let's do some things with this. I like, when I'm using the line mat, for this look rather, or I guess it doesn't really matter what I like, but for this look we're going to use the polygon version of the sphere. As you can see, that gives us kind of a more interesting geometry to work with. We get all of these triangular sections rather than when you have a mesh and you have quadrilateral connectivity, you get these squares. I think you can now, anyway, I don't know the rules with mesh exactly, but mesh gives you a grid, polygon gives you interconnected triangles. So we're going to use interconnected triangles because I like it. It gives us a bunch of different kind of sacred geometry patterns. And we can change the number of triangles by adjusting the frequency in in the detail tab. If I go all the way down to 1, I just get a, what is this, pentagon. Yeah, just overlapping interconnected pentagons. 2, we get this. 3, we get this. So play around with that. There's a lot of just really elegant shapes that can appear just from that. I'm going to go ahead and make my sphere a bit bigger because I want my camera to actually be inside of it. Alright, so now the camera's inside of it. This is pretty boring, but it's where we need to start. So, I want to animate my... Well, let's actually... I'm going to animate my camera movement, but I was going to do my translate first. All we're going to do is set it up so that it moves forward and backwards in the Z direction. Yeah, just basically that. That's it. Actually, I'm going to make this a little bigger so I've got a little more room to play with on the camera. Bump that up to 15. Keep those edges in there, that's good. Alright, cool. So, but I wanted to, before we do the translate, I want to demonstrate the effect that we're going to see. So our FOV angle, I believe that stands for field of view. Just refers to, it's kind of a secondary distance characteristic. It's kind of like our zoom. And if we zoom all the way out, like if we change the angle to as much as it will go default, you can start to see we get some deformation of our triangles around the edges. That's because it essentially is to curve and distort the edges of our digital camera lens, or rather a virtual camera lens, to get a wider field of view just based on lens curvature. Now, by default, this only goes up to 100 because this is basically fisheye ratio at this point. If we move this, if we force it to go beyond 100, it starts to look like it's zooming out again, but you can see it just keeps distorting the edges. So we get this interesting kind of tunnel effect, and if we keep going even further, it reverses and comes back to us. So the animation we're going to do is actually moving from an FOV value of 100 up to an FOV value of 200. So we're going to move from that shape to this shape and back. So we're always going to be in this kind of virtual FOV space that you couldn't easily get with a practical camera, and that's kind of what creates this cool effect. So let's set up something to animate our camera with. I'm going to do the usual. I'm going to use Polyhop's timeline looping method. So I'm going to get a timeline chop, turn range end on, send that to a math. I'm going to select combine channels, divide. Now we have a normalized place in our timeline. We've divided what frame we're on by the total number of frames, so we have a value between 0 and 1 of where we're at. I'm going to put this into a first input in a lookup chop, and then I'm going to use 2 pattern chops to create our circular looping motion, which I don't know how much of it we're actually going to use, but it's still, I like to have this in a project. It comes in handy. So we need a sine wave, and then I'm going to Command C, Command V this, and then change the second one to cosine. We need to merge these. And then we drag the merged stuff into the second input on our lookup, and there we go. We have our looping functions that will drive circular stuff or whatever. All right. Anyway, we're just gonna use. Let's see. So we're gonna use channel 1. Channel 1 starts at 0 because of the sine wave function, I believe, starts at 0. channel 2 starts all the way up at 1 because of the cosine function. So I kind of want to start in the middle, and then I like the start in the middle, move forward, move back, wind up back in the middle for this a little better. So I'm going to use channel 1 to animate my FOV, but first I need to give it the right range. So actually let's keep this clean. I'm going to drop a select chop in there, and then I'm just going to select channel 1. Math, we're going to come over to range, and then we need to change this -1 to 1, and then this needs to be from 100 to 200. Like I said, those are the values we're going to animate between, so that's what we're going to set our range to. Alright, so I'm going to drop this in my FOV angle on the camera as a chop reference, and then let's play that and see what happens. Alright, cool. So we have, there you go. So you can see it sort of starts in the middle, loops back, and then we have a couple different spots where it turns around. So, alright, cool. You know, I am kind of interested to see what this looks like if it moves in the other direction first, so I'm going to reverse these. I'm going to make 200 my low value and 100 my high value, which just inverts the function. I think I like that a little better. I think I like, oh, actually, wait, where does it start? Okay, so here's this, let's go back to the beginning. So it zooms in first. I think I like that better. Yeah, we'll stick with that. Yeah, okay, so I kind of like this, just it sort of creates this, just this singular shape we're focusing on. Now you can animate the camera to pan around the inside of the sphere we've created as well using this. That can be kind of interesting. Let's see. So if we do that, we gotta look at. So let me grab a null real quick, shrink that, and then let's drag that onto there. Look at it. Cool. Okay. So now we get some really weird stuff. So our sphere, how big is our sphere? 14? Alright, so we have, so we're just looping around between 1 and -1 right now. Let's multiply that by 5. Alright, so now we're panning around a little closer to the edge of the sphere while that FOV value is zooming in and out. I think maybe for this, I might not go as far as 200 if I have the camera move, because it sort of, everything just sort of sucks down to that point right there. And I don't know if I'm crazy about that or not. So, anyway, for now, we're just gonna stick to the FOV. And then the other thing we are going to leave is we're going to leave channel 2 driving our movement in the Z direction. So we'll be able to up to this a bit. So our sphere's 14, so I think we could go yeah, okay, I don't think we actually leave the sphere there. And I'm gonna lengthen my timeline a little bit because this movement's a little too fast for me right now. It's a little jarring, so I'm just gonna set it to 30 seconds or 1800 frames. Now we have a nice, slow, not seizure-causing movement. All right, sorry about that. Unexpected interruption. Where were we? I think we were just talking about the Z translate. So right now we just have this looping back and forth between 10 and -10. Trouble is, if you watch, yeah, did you see how it just inverted itself? It flipped upside down. So the reason that's happening is because we have look at assigned in our camera. So when it actually passes the center point, you'll see when this gets to 0, yep, it inverts. So that means that the camera actually spins all the way around so that it is looking at the origin the whole time rather than you know, just straight ahead in whatever direction it's pointing. So if I get rid of that, it should no longer invert. So we're all the way at the wrong end of the spectrum here. Let's wait for it to get back to 0. I'm watching this counter up here. And almost there, almost there, almost there. Oh, it's still inverted. Why did it still invert? Very interesting. So wait a second. So where's my 0? Okay, so here's 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, 0. Over 0, under 0, over 0, under 0. Okay, so it doesn't invert there. Does it invert when I'm coming back up? Okay, so far so good. Still going, still going. Where's 0? Where's 0? Where's 0? Okay, so. Oh, maybe I just hadn't clicked enter on my. That's probably what it was. This was still reading the look at. Alright, sorry about that. We're good. We're good. Moving on. So, I mean, that's the basic effect. Now, the tweakable parameters in here, probably one that makes the biggest change right away would be changing the frequency on your sphere. So as you can see, the more we add, the more detail we get in our kind of web structure. But since we have the FOV animation, we're still getting this nice, interesting distortion around the edge. And when you have more triangles in your polygon to work with, I think animating the camera movement can become more interesting again. So if I turn that back on and then set that to be multiplied by 10, so we have circular movement. Oh, I need my look at again. There we go. So now it's panning around the edge of the sphere, and yeah. So I did a series of these a while back. I don't think it went all the way out to 200 on the FOV because it never quite went that small. Let me actually reduce this a bit so it's well, you know what, let's see, it might not be the high end that's causing problems, so yes it is. Okay, so when we get to 200 it all collapses to a point. So what if I just drop this to 175? I think if I keep it at 175, we won't lose our spheroid shape. Just watch, just to be sure. So okay, so we're at the low end now. Go this. It says 137. Where we need to just get to our high end. See if we still have our shape up to 175. We're looking good. Never actually collapses, and it's going back down. Cool. That value works. Other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to change some stuff on my line mat. Notice how it's getting very dark in the center here. It sort of gets accentuated and it doesn't look really good when the FOV gets very high and this gets far away. You lose a lot of that detail of these triangles, and it just kind of looks like a gray spot in your otherwise white lines. So I'm going to change the far color of my line. That's what's doing that. It's getting far enough away that it's implementing this. I'm just going to put that to white as well. So and you can play with that. If you do want it to have a more realistic is a term I'm using very loosely here, but if you want it to have a more realistic look, you can dim this a bit so there's some I guess light attenuation depending on how far away it is. I just don't like the way it looks when it gets to like here and you just have that spot. It's this is sort of glaring to me. So I think I'll set it to just this 0.9 value here, this just barely off white. That'll be good. Other things you can adjust in the line mat, you You can mess with how far away counts as far. You can mess with, or that's up here, distance. You can mess with the width of your line at different distances. I'm actually going to bring this down a little bit. Yeah. If you want, you can turn on points. If you're going to do that, they're kind of hard to see unless you jack up the point size multiplier by a good bit. Hey, there they are. But if you're into that sort of thing, you can do that. You can change what the points are rendered as. Right now they're just circles. You could render it as little spheres. Obviously that'll eat some frame rate, but there you go. Spheres, like little cones that you can't really tell are cones. Yeah. Anyway, I don't really want points on this. I'm going to leave it off. The vectors. Turn those on, it just, I think it just puts the normal vectors off of each vertex pointing outward, which for this I think just kind of makes it look a bit messy. You can mess with these, you can adjust how far off they go, you can adjust the taper so they come more to a point, more subtle, but still I think it's just sort of an unnecessary addition to this. This is pretty good on its own. So I'm going to bring this back down to 3. I kind of like this more sparse spider web situation. And then that's kind of the basic technique. You can add in any post-render effects that you want. I guess the cool thing about this is you can add additional geometries into this mix and you'll get new artifacts just from the lens warping. So just for example, if I were to throw a torus in here or something, if I were to throw a torus in here, as I was saying. Alright, so now there's a little pill shape floating in the middle there. That's interesting and all. Let's make this bigger. So now we have, yeah, see how weird that starts to get when it inverts the torus. So, bizarre. Okay, so this needs to have a line mat, otherwise it just eats the whole scene. So let's just drag that same one on there and select material. Now we also have this little toroidal thing going on in the middle. Now what I did recently with this was I set kind of one shape in the middle of the scene to be a focal point, and then it was the only one with white lines, and then I added 2 other line mats and made the background different colors. So you can build some really cool kind of lo-fi wireframe scenes just with basic shapes and doing some distortion with the camera. I think I'll call it here for the technique, but just because I don't like leaving things unfinished, I am gonna just put a little something here. So just something to add a little texture. Do my usual stuff with bloom. Pull the not the intensity down to 0. Pull the threshold down to 0. Yeah, so anyway, there we go. Get a little bloom, piped the thing into it, piped the render top into both inputs, so we have that influencing what's happening on the ramp low level as well. If I pull that up, you can really see sort of the strange artifacts it creates. I like it a little more subtle. So there we go. You can add feedback, you can add whatever you want post-render. This can obviously get pretty interesting, but the main technique was just line mats and messing with your FOV. So there it is. Thanks everybody. I'll see you at the next one.